After the Sabbath, as the first day of the week was dawning, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to see the tomb. And suddenly there was a great earthquake. For an angel of the Lord descending from heaven came and rolled back the stone and sat on it. His appearance was like lightning and his clothing white as snow. For fear of him, the guards shook and became like dead men. But the angel said to the woman, "Do not be afraid, for I know that you are looking for Jesus who was crucified. He is not here, for he has been raised as he said. Come, see the place where he lay."
Christ the Lord lives again, share the news with all men. Hear all the angels sing hallelujah.
Then go quickly and tell his disciples, he has been raised from the dead, and indeed he's going ahead of you to Galilee. There you will see him. This is my message for you. So they left the tomb quickly with fear and great joy and ran to tell his disciples. Suddenly Jesus met them and said, "Greetings." And they came to him, took hold of his feet, and worshiped him. Then Jesus said to them, "Do not be afraid. Go and tell my brothers and sisters to go to Galilee. There they will see me."
Thank you, David, choir, handbells, and timpani for giving us a soundtrack to our text today. Matthew's gospel already gives us the most dramatic Easter story ever, and you all helped it come alive with some texture and sound and celebration. If you know the four accounts of the Easter story, then you know that compared to the other three gospel accounts, Matthew is hands down the showstopper. Mark's gospel is like a mystery novel full of suspense. He has the women approaching the tomb in whispers. Who's going to roll away the tomb for us? You know, they're worried. And then they end up fleeing the tomb in silence and in fear and don't tell a soul what they've seen. Luke's version is actually quite dry. I call it the nerdy professor or mansplaining version of the Easter morning story. The women enter the tomb with spices to anoint the body, and they're a little bewildered that there's no body there. But before they can get a word out, two men pop up and ask, "Why do you look for the living among the dead? He is not here, he is risen. Remember what he told you, that back in Galilee the Son of Man must be delivered into the hand." And he goes on, quoting all these scriptures, taking all the mystery and wonder out of the moment until the women are like, "Enough, yes, we remember. And they leave and they go and tell the other disciples what they had supposedly forgot. And then, of course, there is John's account, which is perhaps the most beloved of them all. He's got two acts to his story. The first act is kind of like today's worship service, a lot of coming and going, running to and fro, people pulling other people inside the tomb to see what's going on. Some people believe, some people don't. And then it transitions to Act 2, where we see Mary weeping, being really emotional, an angel asking her, "Why are you so distraught?" And she's like, "Why am I distraught? Somebody has robbed this tomb. They've taken my Lord." And then, like the happy ending of every Hallmark movie, a gardener appears, a gardener who is actually Jesus, of course, and he and Mary have this beautiful embrace. He blesses Mary, and Mary runs off with excitement, and she's the first preacher proclaiming the risen Christ. All of these gospel accounts, they reveal a beauty and a truth about the resurrection that is unique. But lucky for us, we get Matthew's version today. And this is what I like to call full-on summer blockbuster Marvel Universe action film version. This story starts the same as all the others, with the women approaching the tomb in the wee hours of the morning, the air thick with grief, fatigue in their footsteps. But then, bam, right? We've got a dramatic earthquake caused by an angel of the Lord descending from heaven at the speed of light, looking like lightning. Imagine Captain Marvel, perhaps. She's got all the light and energy all around her. But then this Captain Marvel-esque angel proceeds somehow to morph into like the Hulk, right? With this strength enough to roll back the huge stone on its own, and then in a final flip becomes like Spider-Man, nimbly hopping up and popping a squat on top of the stone. All of this happening in one huge action-packed instant, as if to say, "Sorry, Rome, you tried and you failed. You can crucify a man, but you cannot kill God. Dun, dun, dun." You can just see it playing on the big screen, right? Matthew is no stranger to dramatic effects. He has kept us on our toes for weeks, has he not? And here he is again with an earthquake. He's beginning Easter morning with an earthquake. Do you remember last week on Palm Sunday, there was a shaking, a turmoil in the city, literally meaning a shaking as Jesus rode into Jerusalem, turning over tables, upending the ways of the world. And then just 2 days ago on the cross, there was an earthquake when Jesus cried out his last cry. The temple curtain tore in two. There was an earthquake, rocks split, graves opened. And here, yet again, is a third earthquake, symbolizing that God is shaking things up. Have you gotten the message yet? God is breaking down all that is wrong with the world so that something new can rise up out of the rubble. Matthew wants us to see the power of God and believe without a doubt in the resurrection. And don't we all desperately want to see the power of God and believe without a shadow of doubt in the resurrection. With tornadoes tearing across our country, gunshots firing in our schools and our malls, our former president being indicted for alleged criminal conduct, 3 House representatives being expelled in Tennessee, a Texas judge issuing an order prohibiting women from accessing medication, and bombs continuing to drop in Ukraine, tearing apart cities and families and livelihoods, not to mention whatever stress or grief or hard times or disruption you and your family are experiencing right now. We, my friends, are a people who know what it means for our souls to feel shattered, for the earth to be shaking, and for even the foundations of our faith to be quaking. The cosmic impact of Matthew's Easter story resonates, does it not? It's as if God knows that only a complete shaking and groundbreaking can awaken us to the risen Christ again, to the good news that when all we see is devastating rubble, God still shows us divine rising. But there's also a more personal and more subtle seeing that this text reveals to us too. A seeing that comes not through what is obvious, but more through what is obscured. A seeing that comes perhaps only after we stop looking for what we think we need to see or are supposed to see and let God surprise us. You see, Matthew's version is the only version of the Easter morning story where the women actually get to see the stone rolled away from the tomb. And even though they get to see the stone rolled away, they get to see that moment happen, the women are still disappointed. They are still afraid. Why? Because they don't get to see what or who they came to see. In the immortal words of U2, they still hadn't found what they were looking for. Jesus. Where was Jesus? There's something deeply profound for the testimony of our faith about this moment. Because Easter does not get more exciting than Matthew's version of the resurrection. And yet, in the end, even with getting to see the tomb open and the earthquake and the lightning angel and all of that, even with that, the women are still left without getting to see Jesus physically rise from the dead. Stone or no stone, still sealed up or already gone, guards dead or alive, Jesus just isn't there. In each account of Easter morning, the women come to the tomb to see what they think will be Jesus, and they leave having seen nothing but emptiness. Do you ever feel this way? That you go to exactly where you think Jesus is supposed to be, and he's not there? That you go look exactly where the church has told you to look for Jesus, and he is not there? That you pray all the prayers and sing all the songs, go to all the services and serve all the people, do all the things you're supposed to do, and yet it still feels like faith is empty, Jesus is absent, missing? I know this feeling myself, and I know that it can feel like this emptiness is absence. That it can feel like we have failed when we don't find Jesus or God where we want to find them, or when we don't feel or experience the divine as we really want to experience the divine, as we think we see others are experiencing the divine. And that emptiness can feel like God has forsaken us and perhaps even the world. But friends, Easter reminds us that emptiness is not actually absence, is it? Emptiness may just be presence? What if the risen Christ is not where we expect or want to find him, or even where we've been told or taught to see him and find him? What if what we try so hard to see is actually not what God is trying to show us? Have you ever noticed that it's only when the women turn their back on the tomb, the place they had thought they would find Jesus, and start making their way down the road, that's when they in fact are greeted by the presence of the risen Christ himself? And I'll just give you a quick Greek lesson this morning. I know it's Easter, nothing too heavy, Pastor Ann. I get it, but I just want you to know that the Greek backs this up. Because there are 3 words for seeing in this text, and they all mean different things. The very first time we see the word see is in verse 1. The women go to see the tomb. This Greek word is theorio, and it means just to view attentively, right? To observe, to decipher, to make sense of. The women go to the tomb because they want to see physically Jesus' body. They want to have proof, right, that their faith is real. But the second time we see the word see, it's not actually about that face value kind of seeing or observing. The next time this word is used is when the angel invites the women to come and see where Jesus' body had been laid. And this word for seeing is horao. And it does not mean see with the eyes. It means see with the mind and the heart. It's about perceiving and knowing. It is a spiritual kind of seeing that's way more than just what the visual cues tell you. And I love this. It's something you wouldn't catch just looking at the text on its own, because it feels like an invitation for all of us. So often we come to faith wanting to see with that first kind of sight, right? To have proof for what we believe, to know without a shadow of a doubt that God is there, that what the Bible says is true, that everything we believe is real and happened just as we think it did. And in that earnest desire to see and to find proof and evidence for our faith, God gives us an invitation to a different kind of seeing, a kind of seeing with our own life experience, our own hearts, our own minds, a seeing that allows us to enter the tomb and not see emptiness or absence, but see presence. And this is exactly what happens, because the third kind of seeing is what the angel tells the women that they will see up ahead in Galilee. This final word for see in the Greek is autonomai, and it means to appear or to allow oneself to be seen, to show oneself, to reveal. And this kind of seeing has nothing to do with your own eyes. It's about what the person you are seeing, what they revealed to you, what they showed to you. So when the angel says you are going to see Jesus, it's as if to say, let Jesus reveal what Jesus is going to reveal to you. Stop looking so hard for what you need and want to see. Allow yourself to be surprised. As much as many of us would like hard evidence and proof of our faith, the truth is, we cannot force ourselves to see the proof that we want for all the questions of faith that we have. But what we can do is accept the invitation to see with a different kind of sight, to trust our own experience and the mystery of faith, that spiritual kind of seeing that allows us to look up and out and see that God is actually all around and at work in the world, but maybe not in the places where we've always been looking. Sometimes Easter hope can feel hidden, but maybe it's just around the next corner, the next challenge, the next disappointment, the next tomb. Maybe the Easter hope is out down before us, down the road, waiting for us to come and meet it. Yesterday at the Easter egg hunt for the kids here at Calvary, I caught a beautiful moment that illustrates what it means to see the world through Easter eyes. So just follow this metaphor with me. Let's think of life like a big Easter egg hunt. Let's think of faith as like, the eggs that we're out hunting, little tidbits of God's presence. All of these things are out in the open, right? All the eggs are there. Some are more hidden than others. Sometimes someone else sees an egg before we do, or vice versa. But the Easter egg hunt, in a sense, it represents that all these signs are out there if we have eyes to see, if we have the oomph in us to get there first, to explore, to look in and under and around new places, to allow ourselves to be surprised. So all the kids, yesterday, they were out there on our gravelly playground with their baskets, eagerly searching for eggs, and 3-year-old Julian Fletcher reached down to pick up an Easter egg. And as he was bent down and reaching to grasp it, he was in a different position, right? So he was just low enough to catch out of the corner of his eye another egg that he couldn't see when he was standing up. But man, he saw that egg when he was bent down, and it was under a bench hiding. And his eyes popped open really wide. And first egg still in hand, he made a go for that second hand. And just when he went to grab it, it was gone. What he saw where the egg had been were cute little white sneakers. And I saw his face fall for a moment. He looked up, and there was the smiling face of 8-year-old Aubrey Gangloff, egg in hand. She had gotten to it before he did. Now, if you are a 3-year-old at an Easter egg hunt, this is pretty much the worst scenario you can imagine, right? It is like the kid equivalent of we adults, waiting for that parking space with our blinker on and someone coming out of nowhere and just taking our spot when we knew it was our spot to begin with. Julian, though his face fell a bit, he stood there very diplomatically, eyes wide, slightly crestfallen, head cocked to the side, and I kid you not, within a millisecond, without missing a beat, Aubrey just handed the egg over to Julian with a huge smile on her face saying, "Yay! We found an egg, didn't we? I saw you see this egg, and I just bent down to pick it up for you. Nice save, Aubrey. Way to go." Julian's eyes lit up again. He smiled, she smiled. They were all happy. And isn't this the life of faith, friends? You have someone like Aubrey, the mature 8-year-old that she is, a number of Easter egg hunts under her belt, I'm sure. One who knew that she had plenty of eggs, really, and could go without that one. And she knew that 3-year-old Julian, to him, that egg was everything. For his little body and mind, getting an egg was a little bit harder for him than for her. And she helped him out. They both saw the egg. They shared in that joy, but she let him have that moment. She not only saw the Easter egg, she saw the opportunity to share something deeper with him. I know this is just a fun example, but I'd like us to think about this as our life. Because I know for me, as the kids ran off, I stood there just looking at the gravel on the playground for a while, thinking, why isn't our faith journey as joyous and as full of discovery as this Easter egg hunt? I turn on the news and all I see is the mundane gray gravel of bad stuff. Story after story of pain and loss and heartache and violence. And sure, there's a whole heck of a lot of bad stuff out there, right? Gray gravel meant to trip us up in our life. But all around that gravel, there are Easter eggs. There are surprises of faith. There is the presence of God if we have the eyes to see, and if we become so accustomed to not seeing them that we just walk on by. Julian and Aubrey inspired me to have Easter eyes yesterday, just like the women at the tomb. What does it mean for you today to let go of where you expect to find Jesus and to perhaps turn around and let the resurrection refract your vision to see something new, to see what God might be revealing to you in the world? Because here's the good news hidden within the good news. Just like that sweet surprise of chocolate that Angela put in those eggs, right? There's an extra surprise beyond the egg itself. What our scripture tells us today is that we cannot miss out on seeing God. Even when we think we've missed our chance, it's never too late. The women, when they see the empty tomb, are full of fear and disappointment. They thought they had missed their chance to see their Lord. But the angel says, "Do not fear. You might have missed out in this moment, but he's just up ahead. You haven't missed him. In fact, if you go this way, you can't miss him. He will show himself to you." Friends, this is the gospel good news of the Easter story, that the presence of Christ is around every corner, down every road, behind every bend, waiting for us to see. And sometimes we can't see without the help of a friend. Just as Aubrey helped Julian and Julian helped Aubrey, as the angel helped the women and the women helped Jesus then know to see the disciples and the disciples to see him, it is all about helping each other see. The resurrection isn't about proving facts. It's about the promise of our faith, that God is with us, Emmanuel, from the fullness of Mary's womb all the way to the empty tomb and beyond. Amen.